could be even more than that. So something to kind of put on your radar, no pun intended, for the end of the week.
Yep. Stay weather aware with Dakota News Now. Sounds like we're going to have to be the next couple days. All right, thank you, Todd. Wheel of Fortune up next here on KSFY.
Dakota News Now continues in 2 minutes on KDLT. Have a good night.
And it there.
Ask your doctor.
Dakota News Now happening at 6:30. Expect more security at your next visit to the state capitol starting today. There's a brand new screening process in here.
Protesters take to the streets of Iran after government officials there admit to shooting down a passenger plane.
Students at Augie can expect to pay a little bit more next year because tuition is on its way up. That story coming up on Dakota News Now.
This is Dakota News Now.
Good evening, I'm Kelsey Passel.
Glad to have you with us here at 6:30. I'm Brian Allen. This fall, Augustana University plans to raise its tuition and adding some student fees.
Students obviously aren't happy about it, but university leaders say there is a reason for the hike. Jenna Lemaire joins us with more. Jenna.
Kelsey and Brian, come fall semester of 2020, students should now expect a 4.5% tuition increase. That's a general student fee increase from $350 to $690. There's also a new student technology fee of $260. Some are looking forward to this and others are concerned.
Yeah, it's quickly turning into almost the Harvard of the Midwest.
The dollars from the newest tuition increase and added student fees will go towards a number of things, including enhancing technology and support services for students.
And then outside of the classroom, it would be campus life, student life, campus
Taxes, lack of available workers, and affordable child care shortage.
A program in the Sioux Falls School District is helping to prepare new teachers so they can successfully teach your kids.
Miranda Page joins us now with more on this program and how it works. Miranda.
Brian and Kelsey, nationally, 40% of new teachers leave the profession within 5 years, which is why 4 years ago, the Sioux Falls School District implemented a district-run mentor program to combat this. In the program, teachers with zero experience, typically right out of college, are paired with a veteran teacher. The goal is for the new teacher to have someone they can go to for advice and teaching tips. They provide 34 hours of guidance to the new teachers, including things like webinars. The program will be especially important this year as the district has 70 first-year teachers. District officials say the program helps with confidence and future success.
First year, that learning curve is large. And so it gives them that support, that go-to person of what do I need to do when this happens, or this happened today, what should I do? This is what I did.
For the past several years, the Sioux Falls School District says they've been able to keep around 74% of their teachers.
All right, Miranda, thank you so much. There are hundreds of drunk driving arrests in the city of Sioux Falls every year. In fact, last year alone, there were over 900. And police say those were just the ones they were able to catch. But what's also a part of this story is the number of people who were impaired and behind the wheel during the day when you're on your way to work and your kids are headed off to school.
Over the years, we've seen when we do school zone enforcements, the beginning of the school year, there's times when we'll have 1 or 2 DWI arrests that happen then.
Tomorrow night on Dakota News Now at 6:30, a look at how many DUI arrests were made in Sioux Falls last year during the day, and one woman's warning to those who would get behind the wheel impaired at any time.
Well, aviation officials in some countries are warning their pilots to avoid the skies over Iran.
This comes after Iranian authorities admit to shooting down a passenger jet, killing everybody on board. That story's up on Dakota News Now at 6:30. Hello, Sam.
And the main story today was temperatures just below normal in some places or above average, but I'm watching the potential for a cold blast of air and some light snow this week. Details in a little bit.
And after fires destroyed acres upon acres of vegetation, animals in Australia are getting some much needed grub from the sky.
You had a wreck.
Welcome back. Iranian leaders are designating the Pentagon a terrorist organization as tensions between the U.S. and Iran seem to be simmering but not altogether cooled. The development comes as Tehran admits its forces shot down a Ukrainian passenger plane.
But blames the United States for ramping up aggression in the first place. Whitney Wild continues our coverage tonight from Washington.
The lead European aviation agency recommends commercial flights avoid flying above Iran, a sign they think the situation in the Middle East remains volatile after a Ukrainian plane was shot down last Wednesday. Families of the 176 victims are demanding change.
I hope as an outcome there will be some preventive measure put in place so this tragedy will never ever happen to another family ever again.
Over the weekend, Iranian officials admitted to downing the passenger jet, mistaking it for a cruise missile. Protesters in Iran took to the streets and denounced their government's actions, but some joined Iran officials who blamed the U.S. for creating a warlike atmosphere.
I was dismayed that their first reaction was to blame it as American propaganda or some type of mechanical failure. I think they did the right thing by admitting it. Now they need to allow the investigators in and take responsibility.
Back in Washington, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo declined to testify at a hearing on the Hill this week focusing on Iran. Some lawmakers voiced skepticism that an Iranian threat against the United States was imminent.
I think that it was both the lack of transparency as well as the nature of the threat, that there wasn't consistent information.
President Donald Trump via Twitter reiterated his administration made the right decision. In Washington, I'm Whitney Wild.
We're going to talk about weather here in a bit, and it looks like there's a lot to talk about, and maybe not all of it good.
That's right. Sam has our forecast right after this.
The modern farmhouse look is here to stay, and we have it for
points for you, points for fuel, points for good.
Well, Sam, outside everything's just got a touch of frost over
Yes.
it today.
It's like Narnia kind of outside.
It does,
A
yes.
little bit. Foggy in places, freezing fog is what we're seeing. So what it is super cold, rain drops in, a lot of some snow that's left over, freezing to the tree surfaces, and that's why you're seeing more of a Narnia look to the sky outside. Now that freezing fog, guys, is playing a bit of an issue. We're dealing with some winter weather advisories in many places, and we're not really seeing any kind of snow, maybe some freezing drizzle here and there, or a snow flurry or two. But regardless, the nice thing today was the temperatures outside. It was a lot warmer today than earlier into the weekend. Keep in mind, over the weekend, we had those readings well below 0 degrees, and then next weekend behind that incoming chance for storm. Kelsey and Brian, over to you.
All right, thank you, Sam. Speaking of Pierre, the airport is looking for new leadership. General Manager Mike Isaacs has announced that he will be leaving early next month. It's been a busy year for the airport, with new service provider SkyWest taking over operations in both Pierre and Watertown last year.
The Pierre Regional Airport is the first stop in the Air Race Classic Women's Cross Country Air Race. They will also host the Let Freedom Fly International Air Show. That is set to come up in July. Australia taking to the skies now to help feed its wallaby population. The mission called for dropping 2,000 pounds of carrots and sweet potatoes across various colonies. Operation Rock Wallaby is part of a post-wildfire recovery effort.
Officials say this was the most widespread food drop they've ever done for brush-tailed rock wallabies. Australia has been ravaged with major bushfires over the past few months. Nearly 500 million animals have been impacted by the fires. Now here's a look at what we're working on for Dakota News Now at 10. See how students at Dakota State University are learning how to combat a global threat. And a familiar face is featured in a publication that arrives at millions of homes every month. See why Sioux Falls and its mayor are getting the attention of AARP members tonight at 10.
Still ahead on Dakota News Now at 6:30, could climate change end up affecting your health?
There's new research that shows just the slightest change in temperature could have dangerous consequences. But first, here's a look at what's coming up tonight on KDLT.
Ring in 2020.
Turns out many people who have knee replacement surgery are having it done at the wrong time. Researchers from Northeastern University followed more than 8,000 people for nearly a decade, finding 90% of those who would benefit from knee replacement surgery waited too long to have it done. And as a result of that delay, they lost the most benefit from the surgery, including regaining some mobility. On the other hand, nearly a quarter had the surgery even though they did not need it at the time. They ended up receiving minimal benefit and were at a higher risk for needing a second surgery later on.
Thousands of Americans could die from injuries as a result of global warming. That's according to a new study out today. Researchers looked at 38 years of health data from every state in the continental U.S. They found an average temperature increase of about 3 degrees Fahrenheit may result in at least 1,600 additional deaths by injury each year. Most of the deaths would be caused by drowning, transport accidents, assaults, and suicides. The majority of the victims would be young men. The states with potentially the highest number of deaths would be California, Texas, and Florida.
Well, Sam has one last check of the weather forecast in just a few moments from now.
You're watching Dakota News Now. Stay with us.
Dakota News Now.
Hey guys, that many places are going to be seeing measurable snow out of this, and it's going to be much of the Midwest actually. So not just us.
Well, you know, sometimes we called you Tyler today, we called Tyler Sam, but anyways, thanks for joining us for day 1 of Dakota News Now.
Yeah, appreciate you being along with us here at 6:30. We will be back tonight with the news at 10 on both KSFY and KDLT. From all of us to all of you, good night, everyone.
During the New Year's